So as I was saying before, and this is the recorded path, this is our mission statement as you guys see it on the screen. We are present in about over 15 countries, about 500 adherents, and growing at every turn. Two things that I want to point out at this juncture: we are ferociously nonpartisan and non-sectarian, and the details of our mission statement is as written there. And we have presented several of these meetings that are online, and you can look at the details. So for those who are, this audience doesn't need an introduction to CNCD, but for those who are perhaps new in medical school or early on, as you guys know, we relate CNCD, chronic non-communicable diseases, as the related lifestyle conditions of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and stroke. Cardiovascular disease itself has coronary artery disease and hypertension as part of it. This is a little bit different, smaller in scope than NCD, which is a little bit bigger, encompasses cancer and other chronic diseases. The estimated cost of CNCD is huge, as you guys can see. It is a complex interaction, as you guys know, between health, the economy, the population, and globalization of unhealthy lifestyle. As we have a COVID pandemic, before the COVID pandemic, CNCD is an ongoing pandemic, and we view in the organization this CNCD pandemic as a multi-sectoral failure, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Because we're in a pandemic situation, because it's due to all of these different factors, only a multi-sectoral approach will solve this preventable worldwide crisis, as we have articulated in different venues and different places, including our white paper, including different presentations by myself and other members in the organization. So I'm not going to go over the 5 core principles. I'm recording this, and we will have this online. You guys can take a look, and it will also be certainly on the website, on our website. This is, I think, these next couple of slides really hone in what we are trying to do. We view the patient and the clinician in this intricate dance, if you will, between the patient belonging to the community and the clinician belonging to the whole healthcare sector. And so in this dance, I think the way we view that dance is fundamentally different from what exists in most healthcare systems of the world, and that is the strength, I think, of our 5-20-35 model. So, while the traditional model, as you guys know, is when content experts, most of you are already content experts or going to be content experts if you're in medical school or any type of professionals. The healthcare systems work in having the content experts advising the officials, that is the bureaucrats, that then go and enact health policy to community. The 5-20-35 model, based on the seed scale model, sees officials, community, and content experts all working together in an intricate learning from each other model. And that's the difference that then brings us to our 5-20-35 model, where we are proposing to have a group of citizens, 1,000 perhaps, who will be looked after by one community health officer under the supervision of a community health doctor, which will also include in this triad a community health committee from these citizens who would interface so as to make the healthcare better and iteratively more affordable, iteratively more effective. So this is at the core of our model again, the community health officer. This is an invention of our vision. This doesn't exist anywhere. And we have Mr. Bill Burke, who's the chief curriculum officer, and others who have been working for a couple of years to design the curriculum for this this proposed health health professional that will have three pillars of activity, namely clinical excellence, community engagement, and research and teaching. I would make you aware that we have talked about this in different presentations, but this will be at a level of a post-nursing degree owner who will be trained to be able to enact the 520-35 model. And so how do we want to go about this thing? We are proposing to run an impact study to examine the impact of this model in the community of l'Escalier in Mauritius, and having three control groups in Espérance Trébuchet, Vallée des Prêtres, and Rodrigues to see if in 18 months to 24 months, if you have this kind of close follow-up based on those three different pillars, what would be the outcome? And again, we have had long discussions and presentations on this. I would really invite you to look at those presentations for further details. And if you have any questions afterwards, we can talk about it, or send me an email. At the present time, we are seeking a letter of support from the Ministry of Health and Wellness in Mauritius. It has been hard in coming. It's been 3 years that we have been looking for this letter of support so that we can run. We are able to allow, look for funds for funding, as well as be able to run this study so that we can have insights that will then be able to capacity build within Mauritius as a model for the world. So that was a very brief presentation, and I'm sorry I'm a little bit distracted because I'm trying to admit people on this screen and trying to talk over here, so it's a little bit choppy, but I think you guys get the idea. And certainly if you want to know more about it, go to our website, and we have all of the presentations that will go deeper into each of these topics. Which brings us to today's special presentation, and this is in the context of our kicking off the Young Leaders in Health wing of our movement. These are principally undergraduate students and professional school students, like in medical school and other professional schools, who have a passion to improve health in their own communities as well as around the world. Through the 520-35 vision, we have a strong group based in several different countries, including Mauritius, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and United States and other countries. These young leaders in health are motivated, and we are very excited that we're kicking off with them. So for this opening presentation by one of a group of these YLH, it gives me the distinct pleasure to introduce to you Uzzam Khawaja and Jamal Mohammad. Both live in Pakistan. Jamal is a physician who just graduated, so congratulations to him. He lives outside of Islamabad in a town called Jamal. And Mr. Khawaja is from the Pearl City of Karachi. Wonderful. Those who don't know much about Karachi, it's like the New York City of United States. Very bustling, very port city. So a beautiful city. So both these guys have worked hard with all of us to prepare this presentation about coming to study in the United States. I can tell you that there are different pathways to be able to get your medical training in the United States. And you need to know some of the secrets, if you will. And there are thousands of these positions available. And both Jamal and Uzzam are very much preparing to do their residencies and compete for slots in the United States. So they are motivated to tell us, to share what they know. And so I will hand them the floor, Uzzam and Jamal. I will stop sharing now. If you guys can whoever can start sharing and then present. And if you guys could hold your questions, write down your questions, maybe in the chat section, and then we can have the discussion afterwards. Or if there is anything that you would want them to stop you, that will be to stop them and to ask for a point of clarification, that would be good too. So on to you guys, Uzzam and Jamal.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sower. It's really wonderful opportunity you have given us. And I would like to thank you, everybody who has joined. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be talking about the pathways to medical residency in the United States. I would like to outline our presentation for today. So first, we will be discussing about the background and scope. We will also discuss competitiveness among different specialties. We will talk about some tips and tricks for USMLEs, and a lot more to come on research, letter of recommendations, and finally we will take your questions and we will discuss with you. So as you know, knowledge is power, and we are all medical in the medical field, and we have to study a lot, we have to learn a lot, and that is our motivation to move forward and to seek residency in the United States. And United States provides multiple opportunities for foreign medical graduates to come in and join the residency and to train for a better future. So the graduating from residency program is in United States. It has exposure. It gives you exposure to like a lot of places. You can go to like you can go worldwide, and you will be accepted, recognized as a physician. Now, in the components of the U.S. residency pathway, you will encounter multiple organizations which will be interacting with you and with whom you will be interacting. To name a few, these are USMLE, ECFMG, FSMB, and so on. And I would like to talk about these organizations one by one in detail in the further slides. So, beginning with our first organization, we'll move to the next slide. Thank you. First of all, the first thing is USMLE exams. That is your United States medical license exams. And these exams, there are a total of 4 exams, namely Step 1, Step 2 CK or clinical knowledge, and Step 2 CS or clinical skills, and finally the Step 3. Now, the first 2 exams, the Step 1 and Step 2 CK, this could be taken anywhere in the designated prometric centers worldwide. For the last 2 exams, that will be clinical skills and Step 3 exam. These are solely conducted in the United States. So different exams have a different timeline to prepare. Also, the timelines, they vary from student to student. Some people can prepare in short time, some people can take longer time to prepare. But overall, Step 1 takes almost around 7 to 10 months to prepare, while Step 2 CK takes around 5 to 6 months, and then Step 2 CS and Step 3, they take around 3 months to prepare. So the time goes down as you move up the ladder in the USMLE exams. You can have more information about these exams, their application, how you can apply for them, what are the fees, what are different aspects of the exam or curriculum. You can visit their official website and get a better idea of these exams. Next, there are a few tips about each exams which I would like to share as I'm done with all of these exams. So Step 1 is basically, this is your core of your USMLE exams. So once you have laid the foundation well, you will move up the ladder with great success. Step 1 basically contains all your basic subjects. We are talking about immunology, histology, we are talking about the pathology, and pathology basically comprises about 50 to 60% of your exams. Now, learning the key mechanisms involved in the disease processes is very important. And one technique which I used during my preparation was the intertwining technique. This is basically joining two subjects together. I would give you an example of biochemistry and pharmacology, for example. So, if you are going through a biochemistry pathway and you have drugs available which are working on that pathway, so it would be ideal if you study the pathway and then at the same moment you put those drugs on that pathway, and this way you can learn both the biochemistry and pharmacology of that pathway. So that is one thing. So step one is basic. It's very important. Establish your core concepts, and you will achieve great success. Step two, CK is mainly about clinical aspect of the field. It's about the diagnosis, how you diagnose the patient, how you treat them, and the most important thing is what you do next. So a lot of questions would ask you, what is your next best step? What you want to do next? So focus on that. Also, other things to focus in step 2 CK is time management. It's very important to focus on the time management. Question stems are longer, so it can take, one might think that 1 hour is not enough for the questions. But believe me, practice makes a man perfect, and that's what is the key to this exam. Practice your questions and practice the time management. Moving on to step 2 CS, it's basically a three-component exam. It's an interactive exam. You will have patients, you will have real patients, and you have to take their interview, take down their histories, and finally you put them up in your patient notes. Now, this is very important where IMGs have a problem in this part due to the spoken English proficiency. So please make sure that you practice a lot. Try to practice with different study partners, try to study with AMGs, or try to study with a lot of people from very different countries, so that you have better hold on your English, both understanding and speaking. Step three is the exam which usually the residents take in their during their residency or their first year of residency. For IMGs, it's important, or it is an extra. It's like an icing on the cake. If you do the step three exam before applying to residency, then it will add wonderful weightage to your residency application. And it is different from other exams because this one is a 2-day exam. So you have foundations of independent practice on the first day, and you will have advanced clinical medicine along with the CCS cases on the second day of the exam. Now, moving on to the next organization which I want to talk about here in our pathway is the NBME, or National Board of Medical Examiners. Now, National Board of Medical Examiners is basically responsible for setting up the examinations, your exam questions, if you would say. And it also provides assessment services for the medical students and graduates who are preparing for the USMLEs. So you can go on their website and check it out. They have a few assessments which you can take before your exam just to know where you stand in your preparation, and then you can improve further if you think that that is not your target score. Now, moving on to our next, and this is the most important organization for foreign medical graduates. This is the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. This becomes your designated dean's office once you start applying for the programs. And this organization is responsible for communicating to you, communicating to your medical school, different organizations, and your residency programs. This also keeps your records of your all the exam scores, your ERAS application, and your personal records. So moving to the next slide, we have the NRMP. NRMP is basically the National Resident Matching Program service. And this service basically gives you the opportunity to set up it gives you basically an NRMP code that will follow you through the whole match, and you will be recognized by that code. And that code will be added to your application for the residencies, and that will be used for your match process. Now, most of the programs in United States, they follow NRMP match for recruiting residents, but few of the programs, they don't participate in the NRMP match. They use either a pre-match, that is, they provide you a contract without involving the NRMP, or post-match. The next organization is the FSMB, and FSMB is responsible for supporting the United States medical licensure and regulations and disciplining among the physicians. For IMG, this organization comes into play after you have your standard ECFMG certificate. And here I want to add one part, that you get your ECFMG certificate once you are done with your step 1, step 2 CK, and step 2 CS exam. And FSMB provides services for your USMLE Step 3 exam. In fact, I would add a point here, that if you have, for example, you are applying for, you need a visa to go for Step 3 exam, or your visa expired. So FSMB also provides you with a visa letter, so that you can show it to the embassy to get a visa for going for your Step 3 exam. Now, moving to our next part. This is AAMC, or Association of American Medical Colleges. This is basically responsible for your electronic residency application services, among a lot of services which are provided by this organization. This ERAS basically allows you to set up a residency application electronically, where you can put your CV, your application, your letter of recommendations, and your personal statement all in one place. And then this whole package is transferred to the programs in one package, and then they can look at your whole profile through this. You can visit the ERAS website, which is provided in the slide below. Moving on to our next slide. Now we are going to talk about the competitiveness among different specialties. From here, I will hand over the presentation to Dr. Uzzam, who will be presenting from now on. Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and we will take the questions in the end.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jamal, for the in-depth insight. So basically, I'll be taking over, and I'll be wrapping this presentation. So regarding competitiveness among different specialities, so as some of you might know that like specialities like pathology, psychiatry, pediatrics, and even family medicine are comparatively less competitive to the likes of surgery, neurosurgery, dermatology, radiology. So basically, when you have set your mind that you want to target a specific specialty for your match, you should align your application in a certain manner. That being said, you should have your scores according to the specialty that you want to apply to. You should have your LORs in that particular field. You should have the research experience and publications in accordance as well. For instance, let's suppose you want to apply for the neurosurgery match. You have the scores relevant for pediatrics. You have a letter of recommendations for a rotation in pathology, and you have research publications of psychiatry. So that is not coherent, like where you are going to match. So once you set your mind on a specific specialty you want to apply for residency in, your application should be in sync with that. For that, we have attached the link for the NRMP official website, where you can see the match data and all the stats for the specialities. Moving on to the next slide. So basically, this is something really important. Like research is a very imperative credential, and significant light has to be laid onto this, because research not only adds to your CV, it also tells the programs that you have the capability as a physician to balance your academics along with these extracurricular credentials as well. Types of research. This is something interesting. So basically, research, under the canopy of research, there are multiple research strategies, multiple research study designs, multiple research patterns. So basically, starting off with meta-analysis. Meta-analysis and systematic reviews are the two most significant types of researches that have a lot of weightage as compared to a case report. A case report or an editorial has much lesser weightage. But there's one important point, the reason why we have stopped on the slide. Multiple times when you enter the field of research, you'll encounter people saying if you are participating in a case report or maybe an editorial, so it has comparatively less weightage and won't add much value to it. You have to realize right off when you start, you won't land position doing a meta-analysis or systematic review. You have to work your way up there. So basically, whichever position you land in and whichever project you are assigned to, you should grab that opportunity, learn and improvise so that you can target the bigger projects with as time progresses. Moving on. So basically, now this is a very interesting question: how to land and secure a research position or research opportunity. So basically, it depends. Like, let's suppose if you are a medical student, you can approach your seniors, your professors for any project that they're working on. Most often, they are working on projects and they need assistance. So you can like ask them, "Are you working on any project? And if so, do you need any assistance?" And then you can go on to demonstrate your skills and let them know if your skills will be useful if applied to their project. And this way, not only do you build a relationship with them, you also get to partner with them in a project, you land a publication, and you might often land a research position. Let's suppose a research volunteer, a research collaborator, a research assistant, or a research associate. There's one more thing that IMGs do that is really interesting and that may land you a visa before your residency. That is the J1 visa. So basically, what happens is that most IMGs like write mass emails to about 500 to 1,000 physicians and researchers in the US, stating the intent of the email, stating their purpose, why they want to do research, how research is imperative for their application, and then you can attach your CV as well. Out of those hundreds of physicians and researchers, you might hear back from few of them, and like few of them might start a conversation with you and might sponsor you for a J1 visa if they like your profile and if they see that resilience and grit in you. Letter of recommendations, yes. So basically, the other like significant credential I would add to is the letter of recommendations, commonly we know as LORs. So basically, a letter of recommendation is attained by from a physician or a researcher who you are rotating under or working under upon satisfactory performance. So basically, when you get a letter of recommendation, now there are two important things that you have to keep in mind when you get the LOR. So basically, getting the LOR is not dependent on you. By some way it is, but it's dependent on the physician. If the physician agrees to give you the LOR, if you work well and the physician is nice, he definitely give you an LOR. Okay, so basically, waived LOR and unwaived LOR, what are these terms? A waived LOR is one that you can see on your ERAS application. So you basically know what is going on to your CV. So basically, that is why it has lesser weightage. In terms of unwaived LOR, so basically, unwaived LOR is one like that you cannot see. Sorry, I said the opposite. So basically, the waived LOR is the one that you cannot see, and the unwaived LOR is the one that you can see. The next thing that you have to keep in mind is most programs often want an LOR that is like within the past 6 months. So basically, they want a fresh LOR. So the way you can do that is, let's suppose you are in your third year of medical school and you just did a clinical rotation, a hands-on clinical rotation. And now the physician is willing to give you a letter of recommendation. Now, what you can say to the physician is that I would want a waived LOR, but not at this moment. You can keep the LOR, and when I'm applying for the match 6 months prior to my application, I'll contact you, and then I'll get the LOR from you. So basically, what will happen is the physician will upload your LOR to your ERAS application. You will provide the physician with your AAMC ID. Physician uploads your LOR to your ERAS application. There you will get two options, whether you want a waived LOR or an unwaived one. You simply click on the waived LOR option that has more weightage. Yes, the clinical experience, the United States clinical experience. So basically, this is divided into three categories, starting off with electives, observership, and externships. So basically, what happens is so basically what happens is that regarding the electives, I'm sorry. I hope you're able to hear me now. So basically, in terms of electives, what happens is, like, let's suppose you are a student, you are an undergraduate. So in these terms, you can only do an elective that is in hands-on rotation. But once you graduate, you become a postgraduate. Only then you can do an observership. But still, you can still have hands-on experience that is in terms of externships. And we have given the website link here for the AAMC website, where you can see the data regarding which medical colleges in the US offer these. So that said is done, and here we wrap our presentation. Any queries, questions, concerns? Now is the time to ask.
So thank you so very much, Uzzam and Jamal. Any questions, anyone? You may be on mute. If you could unmute yourself, if you're asking a question. While you're picking up courage to ask a question, let me say, so thank you very much. Let me focus a little bit on the research aspect of international medical graduates. When I was running a lab, I would get once a week one of these letters that goes to like 500 to 1,000 physicians, and somehow I got into some list, maybe because then it exponentially came about. And frankly, when those letters came, it was a quick delete, right? And here's why: it's the way the letter is written. It's the way that it's a letter that is a mass letter, as opposed to a considered letter. So when you will be part of our Young Leaders in Health, we will coach you in how to frame those letters. And it's always doing your homework works, right? So having a network, if you know someone who is, say, in the Boston area, or someone who is in the Texas area, then you would want to figure out who are the people who are doing topics that would interest you. And so you can do the 1,000 letters, emails, that would be a low hit rate, or identify 10 or 20 people in your area of interest and start with, "Dear Dr. Smith, I read your paper on PubMed about this. I have done a little project that has to do with renal physiology in my medical school, and I would be very interested in pursuing one of the topics of research that you have." Now, that kind of letter has ultimately fundamentally different approach, because when I got those letters that this student had read what research we're doing, and so I go by Yushivraj Soher, right? And so you could see that the Excel spreadsheet has first cell as you. Whenever any letter that starts with "Dear Professor U," period, that's an automatic delete, right? So attention to details is also very important. And again, you can try one or the other way, and using your network is extremely important. And so Jamal benefits from seniors from his school, and Uzzam is benefiting from Jamal, and so on and so forth. But also, we're creating this network of good people who are interested in our vision to have this network so that you can share information. Maybe there are underserved areas like rural areas where you can go do an externship, but if you want to do an externship at Harvard Medical School, it's next to impossible, right? But if you go to a rural medical center that has as good clinicians, as good practices, and spend a couple of months where they will let you do things depending on the state requirements, then that professor can write a glowing letter that when I'm part of the MD PhD admissions committee, albeit it's a different at Harvard Medical School, so it's a little bit different, but letters of recommendation are critically important, because that's where, before interviewing the person, you know what kind of strengths and weaknesses the applicant has. And if you have someone who you've done research with who gives a glowing attributes to you: hard worker, quick learner, on time, respectful of patients, respectful of people below their sort of station in life. Those are things that we would be looking for on the other side. So that's the sort of big picture on the research tip side. I'll stop here to if you guys have any questions for Jamal and Uzzam. Yeah, so Faria wants to know about the waived and unwaived LOR. Uzzam, could you kindly expand what do those two things mean?
Yeah, sure. So basically, what I meant by the LOR is the LOR is a letter of recommendation that you get from the attending or from the physician or the researcher that you are working under. So once you get the LOR, try to get a waived LOR and try to get a fresh one. So basically, a fresh LOR is one that you get 6 months within the ERAS application. Now, what will happen is when you rotate and you get an LOR, the physician is willing to write you an LOR. You simply provide the physician with your AAMC ID. The physician uploads the LOR to your ERAS application. There you have two options. Either you can have a waived LOR or the unwaived LOR. You simply go on to the waived LOR because the waived LOR has more importance. Now, why is that so? Because by the waived LOR, you don't exactly know what is going on your letter of recommendation. So that is why weightage significantly increases. So that is being said is for the waived and unwaived. And regarding the fresh LOR, most programs, residency programs want a fresh LOR that they term that an LOR should be within the last 6 months of your ERAS application. Sorry. So what you can do is, like, let's suppose you are submitting your ERAS application and you did an LOR back in your third year medical school or a clinical rotation back in your third year of medical school. You can ask the physician to upload that LOR now to your ERAS application, a fresh LOR. So basically, that is for the LORs.
Yeah, so thank you very much. That's a very important point, Uzzam. And in fact, from someone who reads these letter of recommendations, let me give a different, a sort of broader perspective. So in any letter of recommendation, absolutely, as Uzzam is saying, if it's a waived so that you don't see what the recommender is writing, that has exponentially different weightage than this is something that you have seen, and so the attending feels compelled to say nice things about you. The other couple of simple things, right? Any letter of recommendation, if you could suggest the attending to write an formal official letterhead, because if it's just an email, it doesn't sound like they are interested. All academic institutions have letterheads. If that can be written in a PDF, that's better. And what Uzzam also said, there's so many things going on in an attending's life. They are seeing patients every rotation. So your goal has to be to get the letter of recommendation when you are fresh on their mind. And once you get the letter of recommendation, you can upload it. Then they can re-upload when it comes. So if it's more than a couple of years old or whatever, then you can ask them kindly, can you just update the date and maybe add another paragraph in the PS of saying, oh, since I last met, I have kept in touch with Mr. Khawaja. He has done very well. Just 2-3 lines. Those are things when I read letter of recommendation is important because it tells you that this person is dedicated, keeps in touch with their professors, and those are all good signs. Good. So there was a question about visa-sponsored research. Jamal and Uzzam, would you want to answer that question?
So basically, how that goes is most physicians and researchers in the US are looking for someone who has a background of research. Let's suppose you should know how to run certain statistical softwares like SPSS, like Minitab, like many other, RevMan maybe. So basically, you should be knowing how to run these statistical softwares. You should be knowing how to do citations. You should know how to write a research paper, and you should be having some research background because they are sponsoring you to come all the way from your country to their nation. So they want someone who has a bit of research background. So basically, the way that works is many hospitals have research positions where they ask you to submit an application, and that goes through a scrutiny process. And if you are an apt candidate, they might just like land you a position. But the other way around it is maybe you can have good contacts with any physician or researcher in the US. You can work with them for a period of, let's suppose, like an year or so, and then you can like approach them with the intent that I want to come to the US. If you could kindly like sponsor me a J1 visa, and that's not much difficult to do so. So that's one way. The other way would be maybe you could like write an email stating your introduction, attach your CV and the intent of the email, and send it to roughly 500 or more than that physicians and researchers, and someone just might get back to you.
Good. Thank you, Uzzam. There's a question about telehealth rotations. Is that you guys have any ideas? I'm not too sure about telehealth that we are doing right now. And again, because of COVID, things may be changing, but at least I have not heard within Boston of telehealth rotation. That will be a little bit awkward to do for someone who is visiting. But again, I don't know much about it. Do you guys know anything about that, Uzzam and Jamal?
So basically, what I know about telehealth rotations is like many doctors and many organizations. I wouldn't want to name any. Like they approach you like offering telehealth rotations, and they. What I have personally encountered is they'll basically offer you a telehealth rotation, and they'll say that we won't mention telehealth on your LOR. We'll simply remove that, and we'll mention a hands-on. So basically, I would be a bit skeptical about that. Secondly, a telehealth rotation like being offered for the same amount of money that a hands-on clinical elective is offered for, yet you are not experiencing any hands-on work. I wouldn't say that is significant. Like when you go to the US, you have to experience how their systems work, how report taking is done, how their SOPs are formulated and executed. So for that, you have to be present there physically and mentally. So just by sitting here, attending a call on Zoom and like pursuing a telehealth rotation is not worth it at all. So basically that is what my point of view is, and that is like what I've heard from some physicians in the US.
Jamal, what do you think of telehealth rotation based on those attributes?
Yes, Dr. Saur, I would agree with Dr. Uzzam here because, of course, if you are not experiencing something firsthand and you're also spending the same amount of money for that, I don't think that that would be a good idea. And of course, now the programs, they know that no one is coming to the like US, the visas, the airplanes, everything is shut down. And also the programs are also not allowing any observers or elective students to come there. So that LOR might look bogus.
Yeah. So I can tell you from the other side for people like me who interview students and fellows, you do not want to misrepresent. Forget about it. In the US, if you misrepresent, you will be identified and made an example of, and you run the risk of really hurting the chances of your school and even your country, right? Because those kinds of things move like wildfire. If you did a telehealth rotation and you're not straightforward about it, that is a serious flaw in character and judgment in terms of, that is undeniable. So always be truthful. And I that would be my strong advocacy. And what both of you guys are saying about telehealth makes sense too. So thank you for that. Another question is where to find universities that are offering electives and how to choose the perfect one for you. So any thoughts on those, gentlemen?
Yes, I would suggest going through FREDA software, which is provided by the AMA, American Medical Association.
Yes.
That enlists all the programs which like go through the resident, which basically give you the residencies. And the same programs might offer you observerships or electives, but it all depends on you. You have to sit down. You have to, let's suppose the internal medicine has 560 programs all over the United States. So it's your job that you do homework on each program, go to their website, look for any opportunities. Most of the programs nowadays in many states, they have listed on their websites that they don't offer any observerships. But there are still plenty of programs, especially for medical students who have not graduated yet. They give you a chance to go there and do an elective. So it's all about your homework, how well you do your homework, how well you search the programs. And Freda is a really nice software made by AMA. It's a good website where you can search programs from all the specialties and go to their website and look for any elective opportunities.
Good. Yeah, that makes sense. I had forgotten about Freda, but also, perfect is I always sort of take a step back of. There is no such thing as perfect. What I think perhaps I would advocate is you make it perfect, right? I mean, so look, there's a whole host of people who do observership at Harvard Medical School because they can say, "Oh, I did a observership at Harvard Medical School." But the fact of the matter is, if you just came and were not even in the building, were at home in Boston doing Zoom rather than hands-on work, and you have an intern or whoever gives a letter of recommendation that they vaguely remember you, that could work against you. And places, the big cities like you see in the West Coast and East Coast, it's really expensive, to take out a month to go to do an observership. So to me, life provides you, depending on your resources, if you can only go to, say, a state where the cost of living and opportunities are perhaps a little bit more, like Texas or Iowa or other states where you have underserved population, where you can get full attention of the attending, and they are, people are uniformly good from sea to shining sea, I consider in this country. And so it translates into a letter of recommendation that's much more impactful than, I have seen letters from these big schools that goes like one paragraph. I saw Mr. Johnson in a rotation. I had 3 contacts with him during morning report. He didn't say anything, but he was wearing good shoes. Sincerely, Professor this. Like, well, it doesn't help you, right? But then you have another letter of recommendation from a professor you've never heard, said, this young man really impressed us. He stayed, or young woman, she stayed late to study, to find papers to present at morning report the next day, and her presentation was to the point, was able to help us make a difference in the clinical care of the patient. Now, that would make me sit up, right? So again, back to a long answer to the short question, the perfect is what you make of it. I would not, I would almost, again, you, depending on the resources and networks that you have, you should always try for the big places, but don't berate yourself if you go to a smaller place. But there's only one thing: work hard. If you work hard, you will come through. Okay, next question. Are U.S. letters of recommendation mandatory for match application? I don't think so. Can you use your home country? Yes, indeed. Uzzam and Jamal, any thoughts on that?
So basically, regarding the LORs, put like 4 LORs on your ERAS application. 3 are from the US and one is from your home physician. So the three LORs that you have from the US, yes, it's mandatory to have US letter of recommendations. There's no way around it. You can't have all four LORs from home physician. So they are mandatory, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So that's a good thing to know.
I would
Um,
like to add here that people usually have all the LORs from their home country, but there is no such, you can say, criteria that you must have US LORs. But of course, when you're applying to a country, they want to know that have you worked here before, and if yes, how well did you work, and how well did you perform. So they want to hear us. They want to hear from people who are working in the same country, that is United States. But of course, you can, if you had no chance of going to US, you can of course use the home country LORs. But the same thing is that US LORs have more weightage than the home country LORs.
but also, I think to add to what both these guys are saying, what you have done, what sorts of things you have done, and what are your scores become very important, right? And um, so I think it's a whole package. When someone is trying to remember the anxiety on our side who are trying to recruit residents is this person going to be a hard worker? Are they going to be a quick learner? Are they going to be able to adapt to a new culture and new environment? So those, if you can demonstrate these things, and again, maybe in different regimes, in different countries, you just have your scores and you get into some place. In the United States, a lot of weight is put on you as a whole individual. You know, what are things are you passionate about? What have you done that demonstrate that you are a self-starter, that you have seen a problem of homelessness in your city and gone out and done something about it, that demonstrate that you have a humanitarian heart and you have things that will get you to rise above. Because remember, these residencies want to train people who would become leaders in the field, either in the United States or somewhere else. And if you just write in your letter, I just want to get a job, then it's less of a incentive than giving a spot to someone who wants to change the world, who has passionate ideas about things. So that's what I would add to. There's another interesting question. Does a higher number of letters of recommendation increase the chance for someone?
So basically, there is a cap on LORs. That is number 4 is the cap. So you can only attach 4 letters for one particular program, and that too. Some of the programs have listed on their eligibility criteria for applying to residency that they only accept 3 letter of recommendations. So in this case, again, I would quote Dr. Saur, as he always mentions that attention to detail is very, very important. So if you go to a program's website and they have written that we only need 3 LORs and you are putting 4 LORs, just to be, extra sure that, oh, one might get me a chance, but they have mentioned that we only have accept 3 LORs, so that will kind of damage you instead of helping you when you put 4 LORs there. So again, go through the programs, go through their website, and look for it. How many LORs do they need? But it's good to have 4 or 5 LORs in your CV, and then you can assign those LORs, because ERAS application gives you a chance to assign different LORs to different programs. So, for example, there is one program which has future intervention cardiology, and you are interested, and you have one very great LOR from cardiology, but now you are going for internal medicine. You can, for that program, you can attach the cardio LOR there, and you can omit the endocrine or let's suppose any other specialty LOR from there. So it all depends on the program criteria, how many LORs they require.
Yeah, so that's great. Good question about how can we improve our CV other than research?
Okay, so basically there are many ways around that. Like let's suppose you are not opting for research for any reason. Maybe you can increase the number of clinical rotations on your profile. Maybe you can do certifications. You can do courses. You can do a diploma. There are many out there. Like there's diploma in tropical medicine, and there's you can do a degree like a master's in public health, biostatistics, epidemiology. So basically, that depends on your interest. How much time do you have, and how much time would you want to invest, and if that particular detail would add value and weightage to your profile. But I would still say that clinical rotations and research is something that cannot be reciprocated by any other potential. That is something I would add.
Jamal, you have a different perspective?
I would agree with Dr. Uzzam. You cannot replace any component of your application with any other thing. Usually, as we talked before, the programs, they see your application, see you in a holistic manner. They see everything. You have your scores, you have your CV, you have your clinical rotations, and then a bit of research experience. That is good, and that also shows you it shows them that you're interested in academics and you're interested in improving things via research and stuff. So I guess research, even a little bit, is important for your application. It makes your application looks more complete. And like on the ERAS electronic application, then the research section won't go as empty if you fulfill it with something.
Good. Another question is, step one is going to go to pass fail, then would grades not be considered then?
I guess this is a really good question, but this is to be better asked from some program directors or the people who actually recruit, who are going to make the basis for recruitment.
Yeah, I can tell you, there are different ways of grading people, right? So if step one goes to pass and fail, here is what I want to convey is, if there is anxiety on the applicant side, there's also a lot of anguish on the side of those who are recruiting, like we are, because you want to have the best people to be part of your program, because these people are going to be reflecting your program and making it grow, making it known nationally and internationally. So if USMLE goes to pass and fail, fine. Then you would want to look at other issues that will look at your academic sort of ability to digest data and be well at it. And there are different ways, right? Looking at your transcript from your medical school, what percentile you are, looking at traditionally from, let's say from this part of the world, how much grade inflation there is, because there is grade inflation in different parts of the world. And so program directors spend a lot of time poring over the details of understanding that. So you may be saying hip, 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 it's only pass and fail, but the system has other ways of looking at the things that a graded test does. So that's a longer sort of philosophical almost discussion. Another question was, can we do diploma from US without USMLE? The question is, can you do a residency with that? I don't think so, right?
The only way you can get into a ACGME accredited program in US is via completing your USMLE steps and applying through the NRMP match.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So another good question, what is a minimum research project needed to make a good CV? I'll start answering that. So there is no minimum, right? It's rather than you want to check a box, like what did you do? And what was your contribution to that research project? It could be that you're looking at how green the leaves are in Vacua, Mauritius. And you went about it, had a null hypothesis, you had valid hypothesis about photosynthesis, and I'm just making stuff up, and light availability. Whatever you're doing is the attention to details that tells you, are you able to articulate what you're doing in a way that says, this person did something that is really, maybe, looking at how green the leaves are in Backward, I couldn't care about it, but they had a hypothesis, they had an experiment, they had controls, they had good statistics, so those kinds of things. And I don't know about minimum. Uzzam and Jamal, any different perspective from that?
Basically, like, there's no specific limit to how much publications or research experience you need. The more, the better. And the more detail you add to it, the more finesse you add to it, the better it will be. Basically, it also depends where you want to apply, which hospital you want to apply for research position. That also plays a significant role. Like, let's suppose you want to apply to Harvard or Mount Sinai or Cook County or Mayo Clinic. Definitely, you need more publications, you need more experience, and the list goes on. But basically, that depends on you. But there's no specific limit. If you have some research experience, you know how the process works. If you have some publications and you know how all these things work along, then that's sufficient.
Good. I think we will start to wrap up here, folks. One last question was about actual study for the steps. Is there any way around buying actual study for steps? Is there anywhere around buying expensive Kaplan lecturio boards beyond that? Some insight about that. So the cost of these study materials, what can you guys say about that?
For USMLEs, there are multiple options available for everybody. There is Kaplan, there is Boards and Beyond, MBOS, UWorld. So I guess in this process, you can go through talking to your peers, talking to your seniors, your mentors, ask them about their experience with these things, because in my case, my peers or mentors, they have used different, some have used Kaplan, some have used UWorld, but it all comes down to a point like what you are comfortable with. And I guess you will understand this when you will have discussions with your seniors or peers, that what is best for you. And if you find that thing, then I would suggest stick to one resource and just master it before going for your exam.
Yeah, that's good answer. Another question is, how much time did you take for completing the USMLE? Those months have been described by, I think, Jamal did that. So depends. Different people have different times of how long they study and how comfortable you are. Interesting question about, do you have to be a first author in research for it to be considered? No. That you could be a middle author, but if the letter of recommendation from your research mentor says, even though this person was a middle author, they did this, and this, has more weight than having a review of something that everyone knows and just polluting the literature with it would have in the first order. That's my opinion. Now, Uzzam and Jamal, do you guys have any different thought?
So that's a question that I've encountered really often regarding the authorship number. So that doesn't really matter if you are the first author, you are the 7th author, you are the 12th author. As long as you're an author in a publication, that is going onto your CV and that will be counted as a publication. The second thing being, the reason I won't encourage that is, like, even let's suppose you're the first author, then you'll have to work more for that authorship. And that might eventually lead you to compromising your other academics and the rest of your research projects. Why not be the 4th or 5th author and take everything along with it? So that also plays a role. The public, like the article that is published in the journal, that also has a significant impact. Whether the journal is Google Scholar indexed, whether it is a predatory journal, whether it is on PubMed, what impact factor it has. So these things are also taken into account. And as for the question, being the first author does not matter as long as you are an author in the publication.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought too. Is there a time limit on the USMLE once started process?
Yes, actually, there is a time limit of 7 years. So, if you have done step one and you haven't pursued your steps later, like step 2 CK or step 2 CS, then that step one score is going to expire in 7 years. But I would suggest going to the ECFMG website and getting the latest information from their website regarding this.
Good. Um, So we will be, the question is how we will be able to access the links. We will be sending the links on our website and setting up. I think this was a really, really interesting presentation. Thank you both. These guys did a diligent work to get here. I would really invite you to join our movement. They're a good group of people. We're all excited about helping our own countries and the greater world as one community. As you can see, we were going to take all of us together in this journey. Our executive leadership team is very committed to mentoring the young leaders in health. We pair up our YLH members with specific mentors that could help them in their career path, whether it's medical school, whether it's other pursuits. We have people from all walks and all professions that there is, but we are committed to seeing the vision of 52035 being implemented in Mauritius or somewhere else for the greater good. So thank you for joining, and we will be in touch. Please send us your email address and your location and name so that we can keep you in our address book and send you for more of these presentations. Take care, guys, and have a
Thank you.
nice week ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.